If you were to make a list of underappreciated game systems or mechanics, what would you put on that list?
Okay, so there's a thing in MMOs, so hotkey MMOs. When you hit a hotkey, it will cast a spell, and you target the enemy separately from that. So it just automatically does the spell when you hit the spell button against the enemy. Now there might be some spells that have like a range, or they do an area of effect around you, or you have to place it on the ground, or it's in front of you, like a cone, an AOE cone. But for the most part, the hotkey is that you don't have to aim it. It's just, you just target it and you just hit the button, and then the character does all the work for you. And what happened in the Star Wars game, the Star Wars MMO, which I hope they fixed, but I haven't gone back and played it, is that they didn't learn the lesson that World of Warcraft had, which is that they separated the spell effect from the animation. And this is going to be really hard to explain, so it's good practice for me to see if I can get it right. So when you hit the button to cast a spell in World of Warcraft, and it has like a 3-second cast duration, so it takes 3 seconds to cast the spell. If for whatever reason the animation breaks because you took a hit and your character went into a dodge animation, or part of the animation wasn't finished from the run when you hit the button to start the cast animation, it doesn't matter. The spell effect and the result takes precedence, or takes preference over the animation itself. So the animations will occasionally look kind of jittery and kind of off, but the gameplay feels really smooth and really responsive, that you never have to be like fighting against these animations that you might not even understand why they're not working properly. So what Star Wars The Old Republic MMO did was like the opposite. The animation took preference over the effect. So you might be a stormtrooper kind of character, and you have essentially a spell where you fire your gun for a volley, and then after that goes off, you can throw a grenade. So if that volley duration is 3 seconds, the animation might be 3.2 seconds. And then you want to throw a grenade. Well, even though the spell is done and the progress bar, like the cast bar, is off of your screen, the game still wouldn't let you throw the grenade until the animation was done playing. So it has like almost this, well, not almost, it is. It's like an invisible extension on the cast duration that might not always be there, depending on if the animation got out of sync or not. So this is an example of when the effect should definitely not be tied to the animation. It should be something completely different, because the game feels more important than the game looking correct, because it's hockey combat. It doesn't have to have this like mess around with like hitboxes and hit detection and all this other stuff. The game does that for you. Well, it's the opposite is true in action games that have combat that are meant to be like Devil May Cry and Dark Souls and the like. You want the animation to take preference over the effect, because if the effect is separate from the animation, then you get these weird kind of things like we saw in Code Vein, where that flamethrower attack, the animation doesn't match up to the effect, and the effect takes precedence over the animation, and you get things that look like wonky hitboxes when they're not even wonky hitboxes. The effect, the animation is just like fucking broken when it comes to giving you visual information, like it's just wrong. And that's what the difference is between games like, for the most part, like Dark Souls and the like, and God of War, with Witcher 2 and 3, and even Witcher 1. But Witcher 1 kind of has almost kind of like hotbar combat, whereas Witcher 2 and Witcher 3 don't. So that's something I really appreciate, and I don't think you really realize it when you're playing games until you go to another game that has something different. I know that I didn't really mention that at all, maybe not even one bit in the God of War video, whereas I should have, because God of War does it probably better than any other game while also having really flashy moves. Like the combat animations in God of War are really fucking good, whereas the effects that are tied to them are also like it's pristine. There weren't really that many hitbox problems that I remembered in God of War. There were some, of course, but like they did a really, really good job matching those visuals to what the effect should be, and the visuals taking preference over it. Witcher does not do this. Witcher is one of the worst games I've ever played for it. unfortunately. Witcher 3, Witcher 2, yeah, as well. And I don't go on and on and on and on about it in the video, but it is a big major part of why I think the combat in Witcher 3 is really disappointing in a lot of ways, even though it's still quite good for open world RPG games. Unfortunately, like, the bar is set pretty fucking low. Does that make sense? So yeah, it's very important for an action game to do that. If the animation doesn't take preference, then you're going to get into a lot of frustrating situations where the visual information, the feedback you're being given by the game is wrong, and there's no real way to account for it, and you get into these really awkward situations. But it's fine in some games. Like I said, like, some RPGs can pull it off. Like, they don't have to be, like, they're close to hotkey combat. But when a game is trying to be very much more like a grounded action game, they have to get that right. Yeah, the other one I want to talk about is movement systems. So this game is an example of that. We just kind of got lucky here. The movement system in this game is quite simple, but you have a lot of, like, control. I wish you could move a little faster with like an additional kind of, like, maybe like a way to use your flight juice. See in the top right there, the orange bar, to move a little faster to left or the right, or while you're airborne. But any game that has something that's more, just has more than just the standard hold forward to move sort of thing, is going to get extra points from me, because I really enjoy having movement systems that have ways for you to move faster, little tricks for you to use. One of my favorite mechanics in any game is something like a hook shot or the grapple hook, but it has to be used in something that, like, Uncharted uses it, and not like how Zelda uses it. Zelda is very, like, clunky with its hook shot kind of use, whereas Uncharted is very smooth. It doesn't interrupt how the game works or how movement is being done. A really good example of it being used well in a game that probably most people haven't played was the PlayStation 2 007 game. In multiplayer, there was a hook shot that you can use, and it was had a quite a long range on it, and you ended up being in multiplayer, if you had this enabled, it ended like me and my friends would play it with sniper rifles turned on, so just like sniper rifles only with the hook shot, and it became like this kind of like Spider-Man with a sniper rifle kind of gameplay, where you would just be like zipping all over the place with the hook shot, like, and trying to aim up shots at each other, and they might like zip around with the hook shot right before you can line up the shot. And we got to the point where we were moving exclusively with the hook shot kind of thing. So I really like movement systems that have like little things like that, like anything that you can micro, to use the really technical term, like Celeste's like little movement options, like that even some that I struggled to learn when I was playing the game on stream. The dashing into the ground and then jumping, the dashing up into a wall and kicking off of it, little things like that. I really love things like that embrace creativity and little tricks you can learn to make yourself move faster, but it has to have something more to it than like Ocarina of Time, like you can roll around to move faster. Like, that's kind of bad. Whereas holding down Z targeting and being able to like jump to the side, that's a little more creative and a little more fun for me. But just having to just spam a button, like, no thank you. So that's what I like. I think that a lot of games should embrace that kind of part of video games to make the movement as interesting as they can be. And the last one I can talk about is rewarding exploration. So I think too many games don't do this, and I think the mistake they make is that they think that the rewards that they have in place are way better than they actually are. Finding new gear isn't really all that fun when your gear doesn't really matter all that much and doesn't have very interesting uses. Like, if your gear is just a pile of stats that just makes the numbers go up or increases your crit or whatever, that's not really exciting. Like, I think the rewards for exploration should be like really fun and really tangible. It should be like a new tool or a new option to get, or you're increasing something that is more like fundamental, like your movement speed or your jump height, or like in the most boring kind of like your life or your stamina, that sort of thing, if we're thinking about Breath of the Wild. So I really enjoy when exploration is rewarded heavily with that kind of thing. the best game that does the exploration reward system, like the gold standard for me, is the original Deus Ex. That has so many rewards for exploring. You know, experience points are really valuable in that game. You get new weapons from exploring. You get new augment canisters. You get augment upgrade canisters. That's just like the best. You know, even better than the recent Prey, which also did it fairly well too, I think. But that's the best one. For open world exploring, I think it still has to be Breath of the Wild, which means it goes to show you that there's still like we could do it way better. Yeah, for a game doing it poorly, pretty much any Ubisoft open world game, I think. Although that's not fair because I haven't played the most recent ones that they've done. Bethesda games can be hit or miss with it. Skyrim, I think, does it quite well for exploration. Disco Elysium's exploring is real good. What game's that? I've never heard of that game before.